After sleeping for 2,000 years, Tiki is finally back on our side, and she's changed quite a lot since then. Back in her original appearance, Tiki basically had this role that Noe does in this game. The younger Manakete who you recruit a bit earlier on and who has very, very low starting stats but insanely good growth rates. In this game, she's passed the torch. Like I said, Noe basically takes on the role that Tiki used to have, and so she takes the role of the older, effectively pre-promote Manakete, despite the fact that Manaketes don't actually have promotions in this game. Her growth rate is still pretty insane though. One thing to point out is, her HP growth actually broke my scale. It's 130, which I believe is the highest HP growth in the entire game. Yeah, here I have, I subtract 20 from both the base and the class growth off of HP, but in this case, it actually went a little bit over, so despite the graph here looking the same as Noe's, it's actually a little bit higher. Luck, though, is not off the scale. Luck is just 80, which is pretty insane as well. The rest of her growths are very, very high all around, but they're not really the main thing notable about Tiki. The main thing that makes Tiki kind of special in this game is her base stats. Now, for a Manakete, those starting stats are really, really good. They do vary a lot based on the difficulty though. These are the hard mode base stats. On normal mode, her skill and speed are a lot lower, and on lunatic mode, oh boy, on lunatic mode her base stats are incredibly insane. So Tiki's probably the first character who has really major variance in their base stats on the difficulties. But starting with their base stats this high, if you've actually been comparing in my videos, you'll notice that Noe at this point is the same level as Tiki, and yet her base, like her actual raw stats, are a lot lower than Tiki's starting stats. That's more on account of Noe's incredibly low base stats though, and the thing is, once Noe's actually been grinded properly and has maxed out all of her stats, she'll probably be stronger than Tiki overall. Noe has a higher strength and magic cap than Tiki does. The weird thing is, Tiki has a -1 magic cap, but her growth in magic is actually higher than Noe, so I don't know why they decided to give that as a stat flaw when, again, it's better than the other Manakete that we have. Tiki mainly specializes in speed and luck as far as caps go. Her defense cap is good, but it's just not as high as Noe's. So, by the time you've trained up both of them, Noe will be doing more damage overall, but Tiki will be dodging more, so she's more of the faster Manakete, really. So if you want to compare the two, you might want to do it when they're both fully leveled and have maxed out most of their stats. But for the moment, Tiki is actually a lot more useful than Noe is due to her incredibly big lead the base stats give her. But remember that as Noe levels up, the gap will get smaller and smaller. Of course, the other cool thing about Tiki right off the bat is that she comes with a Dragonstone Plus rather than a regular Dragonstone. And this is a very, very powerful item, but at this point it's actually quite rare, so you might want to hold off on using that outside of really important battles, because it's, yeah, quite hard to come by at this point in the game. The other thing about Tiki compared to Noe is that she sort of suffers from being a Gen 1.5 character, but as far as this goes, she doesn't suffer as badly as a lot of the others. For a Generation 1.5 character, Tiki actually has a surprisingly varied support pool. She's got options in the first generation, even the second generation with Lucina and with Tiki's child, and with other Gen 1.5 characters like Anna and Cyree, so Tiki actually has quite a lot of supports, but not as much as Noe does, so that's one thing that Noe has over her. And speaking of comparisons to Noe, here is, in my opinion, the most annoying thing about Tiki. Her class options are exactly the same as Noe's. And it's weird because it seems like the game's data indicates this was not always the case. Tiki actually has Pegasus Knight map sprites in the game's data that people have uncovered through hacking. But she doesn't have that as a class set. People think that that was meant to replace maybe Mage. But anyway, Tiki having the Pegasus Knight class set would actually really help in making her different from Noe, but I guess they just thought that Manakins with Gale Force would be too powerful. It's notable, in fact, that none of the 3 Manakins actually have natural access to Gale Force. There is a way, well, there are several ways to get it onto Noe's child, but she does not normally have access to the Pegasus Knight branch. And again, I think it's because they were thinking that Manakins with Gale Force would be a bit overpowered. Still though, Pegasus Knight would really suit Tiki's cap, so I'm kind of annoyed that she doesn't have it. But anyway, since her class options are basically the same as Noe, you can basically just go back to that video and listen to what I had to say about Noe's class options, because the exact same advice applies here, really. They're pretty much functionally identical in terms of classes. Again, the most important point is Swordbreaker from the Wyvern Lord class, because being a Manakite, Tiki suffers effectiveness bonus damage from Wormslayers even if she isn't in a Manakite class, and Swordbreaker really helps by giving her an extra 50 evasion against swords, which, well, the Wormslayer happens to be a sword. Again, in Spot Pass and DLC battles, watch out for the Book of Naga, because that's effective against dragons, and Tiki has no access to Tonebreaker, so yeah, you want to avoid that. There's not really much else I can actually say about Tiki, so time for voice actor trivia. Tiki in the English version is voiced by Mayella Lee. Now, I actually really liked how she portrays Tiki in this game. She was a character who's appeared a few times in the Fire Emblem series, and it's always a risk when you're giving a well-known character voice acting for the very first time. Yeah, always a risk with that, because people who've known the character for ages are going to get very, very annoyed if the voice doesn't fit the image they had of the character. And really, I think that Mayella Lee really nails Tiki just so well. She gets her personality across just incredibly well. I love the voice acting on Tiki in this game. Anyway, as far as video games go, Mayella Lee has also played Rachel Alucard in the Blaze Blue series. And I guess I can hear a bit of that in Tiki now that I think about it. And she's also Otome Yanagiya in Devil Survivor 2. Hilariously enough, that game actually has a lot of voice actors that are also in Awakening. One of the characters is very, very clearly voiced by Sully, and one of the others is surprisingly one of the characters who could potentially become one of the main villains, has the same voice actor as Owain. Yeah, that's kind of amusing. But anyway, outside of games, Mayella Lee's best-known role is as Rin Toshika in the Fate series, and she does reprise her role in Fate Zero as well. However, for the first time in a while, I'm actually going to mention Tiki's Japanese voice actress as well, because, well, she's someone that you've probably heard of. Or at least, you've almost certainly heard her voice before. Tiki in Japanese is voiced by Ikue Otani, and she is the woman who is most well known as the voice of Pikachu in the Pokemon series. In fact, every single language version of the anime and of Smash Brothers, and starting with X and Y, the games, Pikachu is always voiced by Ikue Otani. Well, I mean, its name is the same in all languages of Pokemon, basically, so why change the voice if it fits for one language? This has no doubt caused a lot of amusement among fans, who some people call her Tiki Chew as a reference to that.